All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today we're going to be talking about the Monroe Doctrine. And we're going to be examining why the southern states didn't really want any roads or railroads going through their territory. And we're going to create an argument on which of the early 1800s inventions or improvements was the best. We're going to go talking about that in a second, okay? Now, here is your warm up. Okay, now if you notice, there's a particular sign, right? There's a dashed line that says Monroe Doctrine. And if you notice, Europe is saying something. So add that all together. And what do you think this artist is trying to say about the Monroe Doctrine? Like, what does it do? Excuse me, what does it do? Okay. So, like I said, look what's on the North American side. Look what Europe is saying. Look at that little dash line. Put two and two together. Um, a lot of students did not have any problems with it. There were a couple that had a little issue connecting the two. So hopefully you don't. And if you do, ask somebody around in your place and see what they say. And again, be sure to point out what's the sign saying on North America side and what Europe is saying and what the line saying Monroe Doctrine. Okay. So think about it, pause the video, write the response because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So here's the thing. I know a lot of you guys have heard the stories about how escaped slaves would head north, following the Northern Star and stuff like that, which is true. That is true. But the thing is, if you remember from your map, which I told you guys to create and draw last grading period, last week, and so forth, um, you may have noticed that Florida was not part of the United States. Even though some of you guys colored it as it was not. So some escaped slaves who were in like Georgia, which is right next to Florida, they were like, well, you know what? Why go all the way to Pennsylvania and Massachusetts when I can go straight to Florida? It's right there. So that's what some of them did. Instead of going north, they went south. Okay. And they went into the Florida lands, which is a lot of swamp lands and stuff like that. The thing is, there was a group of natives called the Seminole Indians. Okay. That's how you say that word right there, Seminoles. Okay. The thing is, the Seminoles are watching these runaway slaves going like, where are those guys going? You know, and all of a sudden they see these white people coming after them. Now, the thing is, the Seminole Indians may not know who the black people are, but they sure knew who the white people were because they had some beef with them. They had some issues. The white people settlers invaded their territory. The Seminole Indians were not one of those very passive groups. They weren't the kind that were like, oh, oh, they're coming our territory. Oh, let's move, let's pack. No, you hit them, they're going to hit you back. And that's exactly what they did. They did, in fact, attack uh, white territory people, in Georgia. You know, they did cross the border. They would attack them. Okay. So, yes, that is true. The natives did attack the white people, but also the white people did attack them. Okay. So, the thing is, there was a lot of uh, slave owners who were telling the federal government, "What are you guys going to do? Get us our slaves back and this and that." And they're like, "Well, man, we don't know what Spain's doing with Florida, you know, because the thing is, Florida was actually one of the like hubs for pirates, believe it or not. Um, there was a lot of pirates who basically called Florida home. They could, stay there as a hub. You know, they had the natives there, the Seminoles. Uh, so yeah, you know, and the United States said, you know what, Spain, what are you guys doing? Control Florida. Spain is going, you know what, guys, we got our own problems. We got so much crap going on in Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Colombia, Bolivia. You know, we're stretched thin. Okay, what's happening in Florida? That sounds like a you problem. You guys solve it. So the Secretary of War, John C. Calhoun, under I believe it was President Monroe, sent troops to Florida, and he sent one particular guy in charge, supposedly the hero of New Orleans in the War of 1812. Here's the thing: during the Battle of 1812, the Battle of New Orleans, the war was already over. The British were actually like going home, and Jackson said attack and defeated them. He defeated people who were going home. But yeah, America needed a win during the War of 1812, if you remember from the last lesson, and that was their one. So he was like, "Oh, I got the perfect guy, Andrew Jackson." He sends troops. He sends Andrew Jackson and his troops down into Florida to basically defeat the natives, and defeat these pirates and some of that. And yeah, and you're gonna find out later, Andrew Jackson and Native Americans don't have a really good history with one another. Okay. Now the thing is, this caused some issues um, when he did that, when he attacked, because now some of those pirates were British, and some of those, and they invaded Spanish territory. But again, Spain was going through so much crap at that time. They basically said, you know what, America, do you guys want the land? We'll give it to you. Okay, we need to focus on some other stuff. And the thing they were focusing on was stopping these small little countries, Colombia, Nicaragua, Panama, and some of that, from gaining their independence. These small little farmers and the slave people, the Indios, as they were called, started fighting back against the Spaniards and actually defeating their army. Now, the thing is, the Spanish army was pretty powerful because they were able to buy soldiers and guns and things like that. So they were up there in power. The thing is, too, there was other countries that were below them that had land in other parts of the world too. And when word started spreading that these little tiny countries were beating Spain, all these other monarchs, from Germany, France, Belgium, whatever, um, they were telling Spain, "Hey, don't lose control. You're giving these other countries, that we control, you're giving them ideas and you're giving them hope that hey, they could beat us and then gain their independence. You need to fight back. You need to control them." Spain is like, "We're doing the best we can, man. We're stretched thin." Now, Great Britain and the United States were basically telling Spain, "No, don't regain your control. If they win it, let them win it. They won it, so just don't try to attack them again. You're gonna lose." You know. Now, in 1821, Russia basically made an announcement to the world, but it was really directed towards us. They were like, "Oh yes, we expanded our territory. We took over this little chunk of ice called Alaska. Yeah, we took that, and this Oregon territory. We took some of that too. Yeah." The thing is, Monroe didn't like the idea that Spain and now Russia are in our backyards. He didn't like that. He didn't like the fact that these foreign countries are here. Okay. So on December 1823, he issued the Monroe Doctrine. Okay. Basically, he declared that the American continents, North America, South America, should no longer be viewed as open to colonization. He's basically saying all the land here is claimed. So you, France, Germany, uh, Denmark, Estonia, you guys aren't welcomed here. You keep, you guys stay on your side of the world, we'll stay on ours. And to kind of to kind of look good in the papers and stuff like that, uh, Monroe basically said, "You countries need to respect the sovereignty of these new Latin countries," meaning their rule, their own control of their country. "You should recognize them as nations of of the world and some of that. They've earned their independence. They deserve to be free." Did he really mean that? Did he really care about Latin countries? No, he didn't. He could care less. You know, he really could care less. He just basically trying to make it sound good, but also tell the world, no, don't even try coming over here. Okay, you guys stay over there. We'll stay over here. And but the thing is, man, it looked good in the press. President says tiny countries should be their own. Take care of their own. Small countries gain their independence. President backs them up. So it looked good in the press. But did he mean it? No. And that's politics, guys. How that is politics. Now, in the early 1800s, transportation started to change in our country. No longer was it just a horse and a buggy and stuff like that. No, now people want to expand the roads. Maybe they know how to make them better now. The canals, the waterways, were made bigger because hey, boats now could travel through. Um, and railroads were now being connected. Instead of just like, hey, this railroad's going from this small town to the next small town 10 miles away. It's like, no, 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 no. Now let's connect it to another railroad track that connects to another place, another 10 miles, you know. So, yeah, it wasn't, it was no longer viewed as a here to there type of thing. It was more, let's connect them and see if we can get them to make one big, like, way, from one part of the country to the other. Now, in the north, so if you look at the map, the area where there's a lot of green lines, that's the northern area. They wanted to focus on factories, having these machineries and factories that make things and some of that. Whereas the south, which is if you look where it says KYMOVA, that's Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, and all the places down: Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Atlanta, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana. They were more of like, let's focus on making crops. Okay. So, yeah. Now, in 1806, Congress funded the building of the American Highway that stretched from the East Coast to West. Now, that was a big dream because we really haven't discovered the West really yet, barely scratching the middle part of our country, you know. And here's the thing, going back to the roads and stuff like that. If you notice on the map in the southern part, you don't see any green lines, do you? You see some red lines, but there's not that many. It just goes from here to there, and that's it. Very few splinter off, you know. Um, but you notice there's a lot of blue. Blue areas are really thick, right? Where the rivers are, it's really thick. Because why? Why do they want canals but not roads and railroads? Because you have to remember, what is their focus again? On crops. What do crops need to grow? Water. What do canals bring? Water. That's why they wanted the canals, but not the roads and railroads. Because if you build a road through a certain area, can you grow crops on the road? No, right? It's going to get destroyed. Like if you put a factory somewhere, could you build crops in that factory where the ground is? No, because that's for the machinery and things, people walking and some of that. So they saw roads, railroads, factories as wasted land. Like, oh, we could have made a ton of, watermelons or potatoes, tomatoes, peanuts, whatever. They're like, we could have made a ton of stuff there. But now that road, that railroad, that factory is in the way, and that's money we are losing. That's how they saw it. The land should be for crops. Okay. Now the thing is, some towns realized when they made these red lines, right, the major roads, they realized, wow, we can get people to visit our town if we made a road going from the major road to our town. Because hey, people get tired, they're on the road for so long, they can then come into our town, stay the night, eat at our place, buy things from our stores, and that way the city makes money, and then they can prosper and get bigger and stuff like that. So some town people, some local towns, and even businesses chipped in money to build the road going from these main red roads to their little small towns. So in the 1700s, the Industrial Revolution began in Britain. And by the 1800s, it hit us in America. And it really did transform our economy and society. Now, one of the things with our society is we believe in free enterprise, which is basically it's an economy where products, prices, and services are determined by the market, not by the government. Meaning we choose what we buy. We choose um, what kind of services are provided for us. And also, depending on what we're buying or not buying, the prices of things may go up or go down. It just depends on us. So, like I was saying, an example, um, let's say Doritos makes these chips that taste like nasty pickles and dirty feet. Are people going to really buy it? No, right? So, Doritos, the product, they made this product. Once people don't buy it, they're like, okay, well, that definitely didn't sell, so we're not going to make any more of that. The government didn't decide, oh, let's get rid of that. No, the people decided, yeah, we don't like that. No, that sounds horrible. Services, so businesses, some of that, they survive basically because of us. If we go shopping there, they survive. If we don't go shopping there, they're going to falter. We didn't decide, the government doesn't decide which businesses make it and which one don't. Okay. We, the people, do. And when it comes to prices, like if we don't buy a certain product, if there's a bunch of it made, the price is going to go down. So like let's say nobody buys any gold necklaces, gold rings, gold earrings, or whatever, anything gold. The price of gold is going to drop because if nobody's buying it, they're going to sell it because hey, they're getting more and more and more of it. you know so they're like, well, we need to sell it, and we'll take any price, because they want to make some type of money off of it. Okay. Same thing with like diamonds. Diamonds are not rare. It's a controlled market, and people stop buying diamonds, and they're still pumping, diamonds into the market, because they need to sell it because they're being overloaded. The price will go down. But again, it's not just one, two, 20, 100 people. It has to be basically the entire country, at least like 80% of the country, 90% of the country, in order to make real change. The government doesn't do that. Okay. Now, also during this time, the taxes were really low. And so people who had money were able to invest in things. So some people came up with ideas and said, hey, I need some money from people to invest in my idea. Some of the things were like this right here. The first steam engine. You see that picture? They had water. They used water to make, pistons move and things like that, and levers move as well. And that turned wheels and stuff like that. And that gets whatever the thing is attached to move, whether it's a boat or some type of locomotive, something on four wheels, a wagon, but yeah, okay. So here's the thing, and I've said it in class. Some people tend to be like, oh, well, I heard on TikTok this guy who made an engine of water got killed and stuff like that because the government, blah, 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 whatever it may be. Guys, they've had a water engine since the 1800s. Okay. That's been around for long years. gas wasn't used until like the 1890s. So for like 80, 90 years, they used water. Okay, so that whole idea of, oh, a water engine is brand new. No, it's not. It's been around for a long time. Okay. Now, this next section, I really need you to unthink what you've learned and what you know. Because again, we're talking about the 1800s. Now, some of you guys know what that thing is up on top there, a nut and a bolt, right? Um, Imagine you're putting together a table in the 1800s, early 1800s. You have a nut and a bolt, and you're trying to put the thing together. You're putting the threads, and you break the bolt. Okay, that's it. That's it. You could not get another bolt because back then they made these bolts and nuts to fit exactly with one another. They were kind of like customized. The threading, the thing that you turn and it catches, that threading was unique to that one piece. So if you broke it or lost it or whatever, you couldn't get another piece. And that's where Eli Whitney came in. He goes, well, why don't we make it all universal? Like all of them the same. All the same bolts, all the same nuts, all the washers, the wing nuts, all that stuff. Why don't you just make the threading the same for all? That way, if you lose one, you can go to the store and get another one. And it'll fit perfectly. $1 million idea right there. Nobody thought of that. Nobody thought of that. And again, I know, like I said in class, it's hard for you guys to just imagine that. Or you've always had it like that. So you're like, well, why wouldn't they have that already? Because again, they didn't think of it. They already had the bolt and the nut, and it was perfect for one another because they made it that way. But now he says, let's make them all the same. So no matter what, if someone loses them, needs another one, if it breaks, they can go get another one. No problem. Other factories started popping up in the north: lumber, shoes, leather, wagons, things like that. One of the biggest things was the sewing machine. Now, I don't know if you guys ever seen a sewing machine at work. If you have, awesome. That you can already tell what I'm going to say. For those of you guys who've never seen a sewing machine, basically there's a little needle, right? It has a little thread to it, and it pops through your clothing in and out so fast. It's done. Okay. Um, the thing is, back in the day before the sewing machine, people had to do it by hand. That's why dresses cost a lot of money. So that's why a lot of women would only have maybe one or two dresses, you know. Um, and that's it. They took care of it. They maintained it because hey, they might need it for later. Their little sister, when she grows older, she can use it. Have a hand me down. Or when that person's gets older and they have a kid, they can give it to their daughter. Because those dresses cost a lot. People did not have closets and closets of full of clothes. No, no, unless you were like royalty or you were extremely, extremely rich, you didn't have basically more than six things of clothing. Maybe eight. Several couple shirts, couple pants. That's it. You know, you had some, nice going out clothing. You had the everyday clothing and basically something for work. That was it. Okay. But with the sewing machine, because it was so much faster to make the clothes, they were stockpiled with it. They had a ton of clothes. And just like we talked about earlier, when there's a lot of something, the price drops down. And that's where people started able to have closets full of clothing and have a variety of clothes to wear instead of just choosing between 6 to 8 items. Okay. The other big one was canned food. Now imagine you're opening a can of peaches and you just, why when you open it, you just see all this fur, right? Mold and some of that, right? You'd be like, oh, that's nasty. That's disgusting. Yeah, that's how it was back then. So it was a gamble when people would open up those cans of like beans or tomatoes or peaches or whatever, that it would be rotten. But in the early 1800s, they were actually able to perfect the canning process and the pickling process to where it was able to be stored a heck of a lot longer than more than a couple months, sometimes years, you know. Um, and also it made it easier to transport, you know, and they could sell them at grocery stores and things like that. Um, and then this took the fear away of, hey, I'm gonna open this thing and it's gonna be spoiled. Now people could relax and be like, okay, this thing has been in this canister for a year. Let's see. Hey, boom, look at, hey, it's still good, you know, because it's been pickled, you know, and been canned to perfection. So yeah, it was a game changer. Okay. Now, the last one was in 1832. Samuel Morse. He didn't invent the lettering and some of that. He basically perfected it. Okay, so with the telegraph, when they started sending the messages with the dee 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 dee, right? Again, he didn't invent it; he perfected it. And what you see right there on the side, that's how that's the alphabet. Okay, now we might hear as like dee and like okay, and then dee and like well, doesn't that sound the same? But the people who are actually doing it, they can hear the difference between a dot and a dash. So when they hear dee 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 dee, they know, okay, that's AREYOU. They know those letters, and it took years of training to get that down. Okay, it wasn't something you just learned overnight. By the 1860s, 50,000 miles of telegraph wire connected our country. Okay, now, like I said in class, 50,000 miles, it's like going from LA to New York 15 times. Okay. Now, imagine though, not just going through LA, but all that wire going back and forth, going back and forth, only being in the section of northern, um, northeast of the Americas, right? A little bit in the south, but mainly up north. A little bit in the middle of our country, but not much. Okay. Using, again, 13 times from LA to New York, taking all that wire and just basically bundling up in that area. So, yeah. And the thing about what made it so amazing was letters were the fastest way to communicate with somebody. And sometimes that took weeks. Whereas now you could send a message to somebody from like Chicago to New York almost instantaneously. So it changed the game of communication in our country. Okay. All right. So here's my question to you. Of all the inventions and improvements that was made through the 1800s, which one do you feel was the best? So go back, look at your notes if you already forgot, okay, of all the inventions and the improvements that were made, and tell me which one do you think was the best and why. Guys, please don't forget the why. Last grading period, a lot of you guys just would put, I think it's this thing. And that's it. And so you lost 4 points. Okay. Now 4 points does not seem much for one paper, but you keep doing that for every single paper, which is typically at least eight, you know. And if you do that for your warm up too, that's 64 points out of, and I give you like 300 some points. That's a lot. That's like 20% of your grade just because you didn't want to explain why you thought a certain way. So, yeah. Okay, so don't skip out on it. Explain why. Okay. So, with that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.